Good evening. This is All India Radio. I am Nishit Kumar and with me is Aditi Lumba with the evening news. The headlines. Manipur records voter turnout of about 77% in the second and the final phase of assembly elections. Campaigning ends for the seventh and the last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh, polling in 54 assembly constituencies across 9 districts to be held on Monday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chairs high-level meeting on the Ukraine issue. External Affairs Ministry says around 13,300 Indian nationals returned to India so far from Ukraine's neighbouring countries under Operation Ganga. India says it is deeply concerned about its students in Ukraine, Sumy. Indian Embassy in Ukraine evacuates 298 students from Tesoshin. Prime Minister to inaugurate 12-kilometre stretch of Pune Metro Rail project tomorrow. Sri Lanka trail by 466 runs against India as they score 108 for 4 in their first innings at stumps on day 2 of the Mohali cricket test. And in the ICC Women's World Cup, India to begin their campaign tomorrow against Pakistan at Mount Maunganui. As we start the bulletin, we appeal to our listeners to stay safe from COVID-19 by following these 4 simple steps. Get fully vaccinated, wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news in detail. Manipur recorded a high voter turnout of about 77% in the second and the final phase of polling in the assembly elections today. 22 assembly constituencies spread over 10 districts went to polls in this phase. The districts are Thoubal, Kakching, Tamenglong, Noni, Jiribam, Chandel, Tengnopal, Ukhrul, Kamjong and Senapati. The polling was scheduled to end at 4 this evening. However, due to turnout of large number of voters to exercise their franchise, election officials allowed those who reached the polling station before 4 p.m. to cast the votes and tokens were issued to them. Meanwhile, 78% voting was recorded during the repolling held at 12 polling stations of 5 assembly constituencies today. 89% voter turnout was recorded during the first phase of polling in Manipur held on the 28th of February in 38 assembly constituencies. We have more from our Imphal correspondent.
The fate of 92 candidates has sealed in the EVM machine today. Manipur has recorded high voter turnout in the past general elections, and this time also the voters of Manipur have shown the importance of exercising their voting rights. Interestingly, the female voters play key roles while selecting their representatives in the 12th general election to Manipur Legislative Assembly. No major unwanted incident have been reported today in connection to the polling. Now the election authority has concentrated on planning for successful counting of votes on March 10. Tight security arrangements have been made in and around the district headquarters to protect the strong rooms. JJ Thoksom, AIR News, Imphal.
Campaigning ended this evening for the 7th and the final phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh. The voting will be held in 54 assembly constituencies spread across 9 districts in this phase on Monday. We have a report.
Poll campaign ended at 4 p.m. this evening on Chakia assembly seat of Chandauli district and Robertsganj and Dudhi assembly seats of Sonbhadra district. On the rest of 51 assembly seats, the campaign ended at 6 p.m. this evening. High voltage campaigning was witnessed at all assembly seats of this phase and particularly on seats of Varanasi district, which is the nerve center of the grand finale. Senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a meeting with intellectual class of Varanasi today morning and later addressed a rally in Khajru area of Varanasi. Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav also campaigned in Varanasi, while Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra held a road show in Varanasi today evening. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, AIR News, Varanasi.
Assembly elections have concluded in Manipur, Punjab, Uttarakhand and Goa. The counting of votes in all the 5 states will take place on the 10th of March.
Senior BJP leader and Union Home Minister Amit Shah has expressed confidence that the party will again form the government with good majority in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Goa and Manipur, where it was in the government. The elections in the 3 BJP-ruled states have already concluded, while in Uttar Pradesh, the 7th and the last phase of elections will be held on Monday. Mr. Shah was addressing a joint press conference with BJP President JP Nadda in New Delhi today. The minister said the party will perform very well in Punjab as it has fought the election with its allies. Punjab went to assembly polls on 20th of February. Mr. Shah said in these 5 states the popularity of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is way above the popularity of any Prime Minister of the independent India, and BJP is getting direct benefit of this in these 5 states.
किसी के घर में चले जाइए तो उनके पूछिए कि माई क्या मिला, तो उसने कहा मुझे तो सब कुछ मिला है, घर भी दे दिया, गैस भी दे दिया, टॉयलेट भी दे दिया, शुद्ध पीने का पानी भी आता है, मेरे पास गाड़ी भी है और चूल्हा चलाने के लिए मोदी ने अनाज भी भेजा है। जब ये सुनते थे तो सार्वजनिक जीवन के कार्यकर्ता के नाते खूब संतोष और आनंद का अनुभव होता था। इसके कारण स्वाभाविक रूप से ये 5 राज्यों में आजाद भारत के बाद किसी भी प्रधानमंत्री की लोकप्रियता से ऊपर चरम सीमा पर दिखाई पड़ी और इसका सीधा फायदा भारतीय जनता पार्टी को होता हुआ इस चुनाव में दिखाई पड़ा है। और मैं इसलिए विश्वास के साथ कह रहा हूं कि हम 4 राज्यों में फिर से सरकार बनाने जा रहे हैं।
In the press conference, Mr. Nadda also expressed confidence that BJP will return to power in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Goa and Manipur.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने इस विशेष परिस्थिति में भी 5 राज्यों में कोरोना के सारे नियमों को मानते हुए किस तरीके से प्रचार सक्षम हो सकता है और असरदार हो सकता है, इस बात का प्रयास किया गया। 5 राज्यों के जनता को धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं जिन्होंने चुनाव को बहुत ही शांतिप्रिय ढंग से मुद्दों के आधार पर अपना वोट दिया है। फिर चाहे उत्तर प्रदेश हो, मणिपुर हो, गोवा हो, उत्तराखंड हो, इन 4 राज्यों में जहां हम सरकार में थे वहां अच्छी मेजॉरिटी के साथ भारतीय जनता पार्टी को इन प्रदेशों की जनता ने भेजने का निर्णय किया है। ऐसा हमें चुनाव के प्रचार से अनुभूत होता है।
In Assam, all preparations are in place for election to 80 municipal board across the state tomorrow. Electronic voting machines, EVMs, will be used in the elections and municipal polls for the first time in the state. Official sources said a total of 2,532 candidates are in the fray. BJP has given tickets to a maximum 825 candidates, followed by the Congress to 706 candidates. Assam Gana Parishad has fielded 243 candidates, while AIUDF is contesting in 17 seats and CPIM has given ticket to 14 candidates. Several independent candidates are also in the fray. The BJP and the Assam Gana Parishad have already won 60 seats uncontested. Counting of votes will be held on 9th of this month. Meanwhile, all preparations are also in place for smooth conduct of by-elections in Majuli Legislative Assembly in the state on Monday. A total of 3 candidates are in fray for polls. As a major push to conduct free and fair elections, live monitoring and webcasting have been arranged in Assam for monitoring of poll day proceedings as per Election Commission's direction. Webcasting will be done in all the 203 polling stations.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is currently holding a high-level meeting on the Ukraine issue. The meeting is being attended by Union Ministers Dr. S. Jaishankar and Piyush Goyal, along with the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, and other senior officials. Mr. Modi has been continuously holding high-level meetings on the Ukraine crisis since the beginning of the conflict. During the meetings, Mr. Modi has been reviewing the ongoing efforts under Operation Ganga to bring back Indians stranded in Ukraine. The External Affairs Ministry has said that around 13,300 Indian nationals have returned to India so far from Ukraine's neighbouring countries under Operation Ganga. Briefing media in New Delhi, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that 15 flights have landed in the last 24 hours with around 2,900 passengers on board today. He informed that under Operation Ganga, 13 flights are scheduled for the next 24 hours. Of them, one is the Indian Air Force C-17 aircraft, which is bound to the capital city of Hungary, Budapest. He said almost all Indians have now left Kharkiv city, which is a very positive development as the area remained a cause of concern from the last few days. Mr. Bagchi said that the main area of focus is now in Sumy of Ukraine, and India is in touch with all the concerned regarding the possible movements of the students, and the best option for it would be a ceasefire. The minister said that it is deeply concerned about Indian students at Sumy. He said for this, India have been strongly pressing Russian and Ukrainian sides to allow this kind of local ceasefire to create a safe corridor for the Indian students.
Main focus is now on Sumy. This is a little in the northeast on the border with Russia. Now here, of course, this has been in the news a lot, and we are exploring multiple options for evacuating our students out of there. But let me reiterate, the main challenge remains the ongoing shelling there, ongoing violence there, and the lack of transportation primarily. But even more the transportation, I think it's a problem of having a secure and safe way to get them out while they're not under threat. We are in touch with all concerned regarding possible movement. The best option for us would be a ceasefire, of course, that allows to get our students out. And in this connection, we have been strongly pressing both the Russian and the Ukrainian sides to allow this kind of a local ceasefire, perhaps just to get a corridor for our students. It's not yet happened, but we are continuing to push for that.
Indian Embassy in Ukraine has said that all the Indian citizens have been evacuated from Pisocin and it will continue to remain in touch with them through their journey. In a tweet, the embassy said that their safety has always been India's priority. It has urged the Indian citizens to be safe and strong. Earlier, Indian Embassy in Ukraine said it is evacuating 298 students from Pisocin. The Ukrainian President's office said civilian evacuation has been halted in an area of the country where Russian defense officials had announced a temporary ceasefire. Kyrylo Tymoshenko, the deputy head of President Volodymyr Zelensky's office, said the evacuation effort was stopped because the city of Mariupol remained under fire today. He said the Russian side is not holding to the ceasefire and has continued firing on Mariupol itself and on its surrounding area. Talks with the Russian Federation are going on regarding setting up a ceasefire and ensuring a safe humanitarian corridor. The Russian Defense Ministry said earlier in a statement it had agreed on evacuation routes with Ukrainian forces for Mariupol, a strategic port in the southeast, and for the eastern city of Volnovakha.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is scheduled to visit southeastern Poland near the border with Ukraine today to meet with refugees even as the war entered its 10th day. Mr. Blinken reached Rzeszów today for talks with top Polish officials. Mr. Blinken met Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki and Foreign Minister Zbigniew Rau a day after attending a NATO foreign ministers meeting in Brussels. The NATO alliance pledged to step up support for eastern flank members like Poland to counter Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Although NATO has ruled out establishing a no-fly zone over non-member Ukraine, it has significantly boosted both military and humanitarian assistance. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, said the number of people who have left Ukraine since fighting began has now reached 1.45 million. The UN Migration Agency, citing figures from government ministries in the countries where they have arrived, said today that around 7,87,000 of them went to Poland. Some 2,28,000 fled to Moldova, around 1,44,000 to Hungary, and 1,32,000 to Romania, and 1 lakh people went to Slovakia. The IOM said nationals of 138 countries have crossed Ukraine's borders into the neighboring nations.
You're listening to the Evening News on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Manipur records voter turnout of about 77% in second and final phase of assembly elections. Campaigning ends for 7th and last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. Polling in 54 constituencies across 9 districts to be held on Monday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chairs high-level meeting on the Ukraine issue. External Affairs Ministry says around 13,300 Indian nationals returned to India so far for Ukraine's neighbouring countries under Operation Ganga. India says it is deeply concerned about its students in Ukraine's Sumy. Indian Embassy in Ukraine evacuates 298 students from Pisocin. Prime Minister to inaugurate 12-kilometre stretch of Pune Metro Rail project tomorrow. Sri Lanka trailed by 466 runs against India as they score 108 for 4 in their first innings at stumps on day 2 of Mohali Cricket Test. And in the ICC Women's World Cup, India to begin their campaign tomorrow against Pakistan at Mount Maunganui. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
अपने बिजनेस को बढ़ाने के लिए लीजिए आकाशवाणी का सहयोग और दीजिए उसे बुलंदियों के पंख।
आपका बिजनेस लोकल है या राष्ट्रीय, आकाशवाणी देती है उपभोक्ताओं तक पहुंचने का हर विकल्प।
और अब तो आप घर, दफ्तर या दुकान पर बैठे बैठे कर सकते हैं आकाशवाणी के किसी भी केंद्र के लिए विज्ञापनों की बुकिंग।
आकाशवाणी के विभिन्न चैनलों पर विज्ञापन देना सुलभ और सस्ता।
बुकिंग है तो संपर्क करें 8700014242 पर।
8700014242।
Welcome back. You are tuned to the evening news on All India Radio. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Pune tomorrow and inaugurate the Pune Metro Rail project. He will also inaugurate and lay the foundation stone of various development projects. At around 11 a.m., Mr. Modi will unveil the statue of Shri Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in the premises of Pune Municipal Corporation. The statue is made up of 1,850 kilogram gunmetal and is about 9.5 feet tall. Following the event, the Prime Minister will inaugurate Pune Metro Rail project at around 11:30 a.m. This project is an endeavour to provide world-class infrastructure for urban mobility in Pune. Foundation stone of the project was also laid by the Prime Minister on the 24th of December in 2016. The Prime Minister will inaugurate the 12-kilometre stretch of the total 32.2-kilometre Pune Metro Rail project. The entire project is being built at a total cost of more than 11,400 crore rupees. He will undertake a metro ride from there to Anand Nagar metro station. At around 12 noon, the Prime Minister will also lay the foundation stone and inaugurate multiple developmental projects. He will also lay the foundation stone of rejuvenation and pollution abatement of Mula Mutha river projects. Rejuvenation will be done in 9-kilometre stretch of the river at a project cost of more than 1,080 crore rupees. Talking to AIR News, BJP MP from Pune, Girish Bapat said Metro will make life easy for the people of Pune.
पटना के लोग बहुत उत्सुक है पंतप्रधान जी का स्वागत करने के लिए। इसका कारण ये है कि सालों साल चर्चा होती रही मेट्रो के बारे में, लेकिन पुणे में मेट्रो ना आ पाई। तो जो पिंपरी चिंचवड़ सिटी है, मेट्रो की सफर होगी। मैंने इसके बारे में बहुत मीटिंग दिल्ली में भी दी और करोड़ों लोगों को ये सुविधा प्राप्त होगी। यातायात का जो प्रश्न खड़ा हुआ था वो मिट जाएगा और टाइम बच जाएगा और लोगों को बहुत सुविधा होगी। कल पंतप्रधान जी के कमलों से इसका उद्घाटन होगा। एयरपोर्ट अथॉरिटी के लिए, सिविल एविएशन के लिए भी मोर देन 500 करोड़ रुपीज सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट हैज गिवन टू पुणे सिटी टू डेवलप द एयरपोर्ट अथॉरिटी। बहुत सारी मदद की है जिसका फायदा आम आदमी को होगा। तो हर पुणे वासियों की तरफ से पुणे का सांसद होने के नाते मैं पंतप्रधान जी को धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ।
The Indian Navy successfully demonstrated the accuracy of an extended-range land attack BrahMos supersonic cruise missile from the stealth destroyer INS Chennai today. The missile hit its intended target with pinpoint accuracy after traversing an extended range trajectory and performing complex maneuvers. This achievement establishes the Indian Navy's ability to strike even deeper and influence land operations further away from sea when and where required. They reinforce the Indian Navy's contribution towards the Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India endeavours.
Over 178 crore 55 lakh doses of COVID vaccines have been administered in the country under the nationwide vaccination drive so far. The country reported 5,921 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours, while over 11,000 patients recovered during the same period. The national recovery rate stands at 98.65%. Telangana Health Profile Project has been launched in Mulugu district of the state today. Telangana Health Minister Harish Rao has launched the pilot project formally this morning. Under the project, health profile of every citizen above 18 years will be collected and recorded. More details from our correspondent.
The Telangana state government has taken up another ambitious health project called Telangana Health Profile. As part of it, the government has taken up Mulugu and Rajana Sircilla districts as pilot to form health profiles of all citizens who are above 18 years. For this, the health authorities will collect data and keep it under data bank. A door-to-door survey will be held to inquire about every person and a unique identification number will be given. Samples will be collected and 30 kinds of diagnostic tests will be conducted, covering all major health parameters for any future reference. All the reports will be updated online. Treatment will also be started immediately if there are any health issues. Lakshmi, AIR News, Hyderabad.
As our nation celebrates the 75th year of independence, a series of events are being organized by the government as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Now let's listen to our special program, Azadi Ka Safar, highlighting the importance of the day during the freedom struggle.
आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव।
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News, Birth of a Nation.
India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day.
On the 5th of March 1931, the Gandhi-Irwin Pact was signed. The political agreement marked the end of Satyagraha against the British government that Gandhiji had initiated with the Salt March.
Gandhiji had initiated the Salt March between March and April 1930.
The Great March for Liberty began. Gandhi started on his 241-mile-long trek from the ashram to Dandi, a village on the sea coast, along with his chosen band of 78 ashram inmates, symbols of the national determination with a strong resolve and undaunted look. 61-year-old Gandhi, with his undying faith in the justice of the cause he was pursuing, and in the success of the great campaign he had embarked upon, marched at the head of the procession with quick and unfaltering steps.
Bapu's arrest and imprisonment at the end of the march sparked off one of his more effective civil disobedience movements in British India. By the end of 1930, thousands of Indians were in jail, and the movement had generated worldwide publicity.
Lord Irwin was looking for a way to end it. To this end, Gandhiji was released from custody in January 1931. Gandhiji was authorized by the then President of the Congress, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, to negotiate with Lord Irwin. As per the pact, Gandhiji, on behalf of the Indian National Congress, agreed to discontinue the civil disobedience movement. The Congress agreed to join the second roundtable conference to chalk out constitutional reforms. It was also agreed that the British would withdraw all orders imposing curbs on the activities of the Indian National Congress.
They also agreed to withdraw trials relating to several offences except those involving violence and release of prisoners arrested for participating in the civil disobedience movement. It was also agreed that the British would remove the tax on salt, which allowed Indians to produce, trade and sell salt legally and for their own use.
We also remember freedom fighter and statesman Bijayananda Patnaik, popularly known as Biju Patnaik, who was born on the 5th of March 1916. Considered the architect of modern Odisha, Biju is lovingly referred to as the hero of Kalinga and the Karavela of Kalinga.
Biju Patnaik was educated at Ravenshaw College in Odisha, but due to his interest in aviation, dropped out and trained as a pilot. Patnaik flew with the private airlines, but at the start of the Second World War, he joined the Royal Indian Air Force. While in service, he developed an interest in nationalist politics and used Air Force transports to deliver what was seen as subversive literature to Indian troops.
He was jailed by the British for dropping political leaflets to Indian soldiers fighting under British command in Burma and flying clandestine missions that carried Congress party leaders from hideouts across India to secret meetings that charted the independence struggle.
Biju joined the Quit India movement and was sent to prison for 2 years in 1943. Biju was also instrumental in assisting Indonesia with its independence struggle against the Dutch in 1947.
The Indonesian Prime Minister, Sultan Syahrir, was placed under surveillance by the colonial Dutch. Jawaharlal Nehru entrusted the task of rescuing Sultan Syahrir to Biju Patnaik. Biju braved all obstacles and brought Sultan Syahrir and staff aboard from Java Islands on the 22nd of July 1947 to Singapore and finally to Delhi. An indebted Indonesia conferred the highest civilian award, Bhumiputra, to Biju.
In 1946, Patnaik was elected uncontested to the Odisha Legislative Assembly from North Cuttack constituency. He served twice as the Chief Minister of the state of Odisha. We salute the great freedom fighter.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
To commemorate the occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav as a Janotsav, All India Radio News brings its listeners a special quiz on India's freedom movement and its glorious history. The quiz is being conducted every Monday and Tuesday in the morning news. The next question of Amrit Mahotsav quiz will be shared with the listeners on Monday in the morning news. Celebrate 75 years of India's independence by participating in Amrit Mahotsav quiz with AIR News. The Coal Ministry will organize various special events and programs throughout the country from the 7th to 11th of March as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav Iconic Week celebrations. The Iconic Week celebrations will be inaugurated by the Minister of State for Coal, Mines and Railways, Rao Saheb Patil Danve in New Delhi on Monday. As part of the celebrations, a series of commemorative events and activities have been planned by the Ministry that will showcase the best of India's achievements in the coal sector and also lay down the roadmap for the future.
In men's cricket, Sri Lanka were 108 for 4 when stumps were drawn on day 2 of the first test against India in Mohali. Sri Lanka is still trailing by 466 runs with 6 wickets in hand. For India, Ravichandran Ashwin took 2 wickets. Jasprit Bumrah and Ravindra Jadeja shared 1 wicket each. Earlier, India resumed their first innings at the overnight score of 357 for 6. The hosts declared their first innings at 574 for 8. Indian innings were powered by 175 not out by Ravindra Jadeja. Rishabh Pant scored 96 while Ashwin also made superb 61. India will begin their campaign tomorrow in ICC Women's Cricket World Cup when they take on arch rival Pakistan at Mount Maunganui. The match will begin 6:30 a.m. Indian time. Today, South Africa defeated Bangladesh by 32 runs at University Oval in Dunedin in the first match of the day. In the other match, Australia defeated England by 12 runs at Hamilton.
And now let us take a look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. The national capital Delhi is likely to have partly cloudy sky. The temperature will vary between 13 and 27 degrees Celsius. Mumbai and Kolkata will have mainly clear sky. Chennai is likely to have partly cloudy sky. Jammu and Srinagar will have partly cloudy sky, becoming generally cloudy towards afternoon or evening or night. Leh and Gilgit are likely to have cloudy sky. Muzaffarabad will have thunderstorm with rain. Hyderabad and Visakhapatnam will have partly cloudy sky with haze. Bengaluru will have mainly clear sky. Thiruvananthapuram will have partly cloudy sky with possibility of moderate rain or thunderstorm. Guwahati, Imphal, Shillong, Aizawl and Gangtok will have mainly clear sky. Itanagar will have partly cloudy sky with haze and Agartala will have mist. And now before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Manipur records voter turnout of about 77% in the second and the final phase of assembly elections. Campaigning ends for the 7th and the last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. Polling in 54 assembly constituencies across 9 districts to be held on Monday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chairs high-level meeting on the Ukraine issue. External Affairs Ministry says around 13,300 Indian nationals returned to India so far from Ukraine's neighbouring countries under Operation Ganga. India says it is deeply concerned about its students in Ukraine's Sumy. Indian Embassy in Ukraine evacuates 298 students from Pisoshin. Prime Minister to inaugurate 12-kilometre stretch of Pune Metro Rail project tomorrow. Sri Lanka trailed by 466 runs against India as they score 108 for 4 in their first innings at stumps on day 2 of the Mohali cricket test. And in the ICC Women's World Cup, India to begin their campaign tomorrow against Pakistan at Mount Maunganui. And with that, we end the evening news. Good night.